Starting, it says. Okay, we're live. Okay, hey everybody, it's Chandler Klebs here, and I'm with my good friend Poffo Ortiz, and today is Christmas, and we're just doing kind of a quick little hangout. Poffo had messaged me with some thoughts and stuff he wanted to discuss, which of course will take actually probably a much longer hangout since I only have about 45 minutes before I leave here, go somewhere. Um, but so Poffo, what would you like to mention first about Christmas and miracles and all this stuff that you messaged me about?
We, well, yeah, there's so many great topics, and themes and stuff that we could discuss around this time of year. Because from like, the all the lore, the Christmas lore of like legends like Krampus and Saint Nicholas and stuff, or we can delve into like the original pagan origins of Saturnalia, like the Roman festivals and things like that. The solstice, the real reason for the season is tilted on its axis, and we have different weather patterns depending on the hemisphere that we're in. Like the winter solstice, obviously just passed. It was December 21st, and that's like the real sort of core all of the religious and cultural holidays that surround this time of year. So there's just tons of things. I was also thinking um, about like the whole nature of inspiration itself, and the idea of there is so there's so much nostalgia and meaning, and people have such such deep rooted sentiments and feelings associated with the winter holidays and Christmas and Hanukkah and New Year's and stuff like that. I think that there's just a really strong cultural phenomenon here that could be explored from a psychological and philosophical perspective.
Yeah, because on one hand, the holidays mean something to everybody, a lot, well, almost everybody. Um, it's kind of like a family time, and for a lot of religious folks, it tends to have a special significance as well. But at the same time, what I find bizarre about Christmas and how I feel about it is nobody can agree on what it's supposed to be. I mean, you can look at the history of it and some of the stuff you were mentioning. The winter solstice. There was already a pagan sun god worshiping thing going on a long time ago,
Yeah.
and then it got
Helios,
Christianized. So
Helios,
there's
sun god of the unconquerable sun. The festival, which Constantine was a devoted sun worshiper right up until the day he died. He was the first Christian emperor that made Christianity the official sort of state religion. Go ahead.
yeah. Yeah, and so I mean, there's the history of what Christmas is, how it came to be what it is today, but then the experience of it and how it affects people is another thing entirely. And so there depending on who you ask, the holidays will evoke some kind of feelings, some positive, some negative, and some both.
Absolutely. There's this whole other aspect as well that you just reminded me of, that this is also like the most depressing time of the year for some people. It's the most stressful time of the year. It's such an ironic thing, because all the music, all the songs, the traditional songs talk about it's the most wonderful time of the year, and there is this like this expectation, this idealism involved, and it's almost like it's set up to be this wonderful, amazing, enchanting time. And for so many people, for people who are down and out, for people who are less fortunate, it's the exact opposite. So it becomes like a real source of discouragement and depression. And the highest suicide rate is around this time of year. And so there's that whole aspect of the idea of people's expectations, and and then of course there's the all the stress involved with dealing with family, trying to reconcile or reunite with family members that you may be estranged from, or that you may have different ideals, contradictory ideals. I mean, I have some of the worst times in my life: Christmas and New Year's and my birthday. My birthday is coming up next week. it's like all those three, actually Hanukkah as well. You have Hanukkah, Christmas, my birthday, and New Year's. And some of the worst times in my life, the worst things that ever happened in my life happened during this month. And then at the same time, some of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had were during this month. So it's a very strange sort of dichotomy of like of beauty and horror, you know. And I think kind of that's why I love this kind of this melding and mixing. I don't know if you can see behind me. We kind of have like a we have like a hybrid Halloween Christmas theme going on, because me and Amber, we love like horror movies and Halloween and the macabre. So we just leave the Halloween decorations up, and then we just throw a few Christmas decorations in there. We had a skeleton instead of a tree. We put presents around them. So there's that as well. That it's a very dark and dismal time of year, which gets back to the root, you know, reason, the cause for the celebration, the idea of Yule and keeping the lights burning and keeping, and the pagans, the ancients, they would have all this revelry because most dangerous time of the year. You might not make it through the winter, and so the idea was to party and just get drunk and feast and try to just enjoy and experience as much levity as you could and try to hang on to it, because you know the idea was that the sun, the ancient idea, even, you know, antecedent to this, was that the sun was dying, and for 3 days, you know, it disappeared. It was not moving. It was sort of staying still in the sky. And then after the 23rd, the 24th, that's when actually the days start to get longer again, and you know, light returns to the earth, so to speak. So there's a lot of powerful universal motifs and themes involved in the holiday season. And so there's so many different subjects and themes and angles that we could take, but I just wanted this to be kind of an introduction to it, and maybe we can you know, just listen to some other people's responses if they watch the video and see what they would like us to talk about, because you know, we can go so many different ways, you know, about depression, about the folklore, about the materialism. We didn't talk about that yet, about the how materialistic and superficial it becomes, and this consumerist culture, this capitalistic consumerist culture that is so obsessed with things and you know, all the shiny gadgets and toys, and what Christmas was to us when we were kids and what it means now, and how we mature and, you know, and develop a deeper appreciation for the season, if in, you know, for whatever it is, whatever aspect that we appreciate about it. So it's I just think it's a great topic that we could explore, you know, exponentially explore.
Yeah. Yeah, and see, here's the thing is like I working in a grocery store and seeing how people act around the holidays am not very impressed. You know, everybody's in a hurry and they're rude and they're cranky, and then they're buying all this crap that, you know, that they think they have to do. And of course, a lot of it tends to be murdered animals, which additionally bothers me. Um, but it's interesting
Very,
because
yeah.
holidays are like this, where people, it changes their behavior. Isn't it funny how, because it's a certain holiday and there's certain expectations, it's like you're expected to have dinner with your relatives even though you can't stand them. And so all these people, it's like they're having the Griswold family Christmas, you know, where
I love
everything
it.
just goes
One of my
wrong.
favorite movies, my favorite Christmas movies, definitely is you know, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. It just captures. I can watch that over and over. It just
Yeah.
captures so perfectly
Yeah,
all
it's so
the chaos and how
funny.
everything go wrong. You know, with dealing with family and in-laws and stuff.
Yeah, and see what happened is Clark Griswold, played by Chevy Chase, you know, he had that idealism, this idealism that he's going to
Right.
have the perfect Christmas, and he's going to have all his relatives over, and they're going to have the happiest Christmas ever. And then everything goes wrong, and then um, you know, he's talking to his dad in the movie, and he's like, the holidays were always such a mess when I was growing up. How did you get through it? He said, I had a lot of help from Jack Daniels. You know, it's like the holidays are such a stressful, depressing time for people. And what I think is if people didn't have this idealism and expect it to be some great thing, then maybe they wouldn't be so disappointed and depressed.
Right. It's such a weird contradiction that that supposedly the happiest time of the year, when everyone is supposed to be more charitable and kind, people are actually, more irritable and in a hurry and impatient, and it's all about where the focus is. I mean, in other parts of the world it's a completely different experience. It just depends on the culture that you're in, that you're currently living in. And what was I gonna say, yeah, that like it's just there's a weird paradoxical nature to it, that I think even goes back further, because why do we have the ideals to begin with? This idealism come from? That's what's really interesting to me, is like, yeah, we know what it's become. You see, I mean, the day after Thanksgiving, the friggin' nightmare of that is Black Friday, when you see people trampling each other to get ridiculous deals on like on technology items. And yet it's like that's the introduction to the most beautiful season, the most beautiful time. So what does that tell you? But like at the same time, where did the idealism come from? And I'm really interested in like exploring that concept of light and darkness, and trying to hold on to the light, and the idea of keeping the Yule log burning, of keeping the candles lit on the menorah for Hanukkah, of the star of Bethlehem, guiding the wise men. Even though we know it's just a story, it's just a legend, there is this idea of light shining through darkness, and hanging on to the hope that the winter, the darkness, metaphorically speaking, the darkness will end, and that the sun will shine again, that life and light in the world. Because in its own way, it's beautiful, but it's like the earth kind of dies and goes to sleep, and is sort of like in hibernation. A lot of animals, a lot of mammals go into hibernation, and so much of the weather, it just seems the natural cycles of the seasons. They go barren, and then there's hardly any food, and so there's these ideas of death and renewal and rebirth, and that's what I'm more interested in, is kind of the psychology, the unconscious themes that are
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah, and
Does that make
something
sense?
else that is kind of interesting is that now a lot of the Christmas songs and a lot of traditions and all this stuff, it goes along with cold weather, it being winter, and there being cold weather, and then there's snow, and so there's that song, I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas. But here's the
Mm-hmm.
thing, is for people who lived their whole life in Southern California, like my mom did, when she grew up in Southern California. There was no snow. Winter was warmer there than summer is in a lot of other places. You know what I mean? And so what's
Yeah.
interesting is that your geographical location also has this huge influence, because remember, like in the Home Alone movies, how Kevin McAllister, he said, why would you want to spend Christmas in Florida? There's no Christmas trees in Florida. Which, okay, first of
Yeah.
all, that's weird. It's like, because this idea that they have to have a pine tree to be a Christmas tree, that is based on a geographical location and pine trees growing in that area. But people are weird in this way, that it
American
just goes to
culture.
show you the difference.
Yeah. It comes from the Nordic traditions, and of uh, those regions, and the Netherlands, and Germanic cultures, that we're celebrating. I mean, all cultures in antiquity had festivals that revolved around the seasons, or revolved around the death and burial and resurrection of their dying and rising gods. Whether it was Tammuz, Attis, or Jesus. It's just a long succession of this dying and rising God myth that was really just a parallel for the sun. And of course, Christians have no clue about any of this stuff. They think it's a literal. But there's that as well. That even there is something about like midnight mass, and when the Catholics are doing their thing that they did last night on Christmas Eve, and there's something about the idea of moments, surrounded with loved ones or family members or pets, or around a Christmas tree, around a fireplace. There's something that is so charming and sentimental with that, and that's what I'd like to really hold on to and capture and really understand, like what that means, what that's about, where it comes from, and how to foster it, like in other ways. That I do believe what I'm trying to say here. If I could sum it up, I do believe there is a magic to Christmas this time of year, but it's not for the reasons that people think. I think it's even on a more primal level, and it has to do with our relationship to nature. Of course, big shock there, right? I think it all comes back to our
Yeah, yeah,
relationship
no
with
kidding,
nature.
right?
But it's
Yeah, it
true.
always
It all
does.
has to do with the weather and our relationship to the life cycles and the seasons, and the idea of gratitude and being thankful, and there's something so endearing about coming in out of the cold and being warm and snuggling up, and knowing that you have food and that you're safe and that you have um, and plenty of wood stocked up, and you can make a fire, and out there it's cold, and there's something to that, that it brings people together, and of course, it also tears people apart because of the expectations that you talked about earlier, and the clash, because this time of the year we want to get together, but all the rest of the year we're all pulling in different directions, and that close, and then we're trying to reconcile and be more benevolent and kind-hearted and good-spirited toward each other. It's the one time of year that you probably see the best in people and the worst in people, like simultaneously. That's what's so interesting about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and what we need to do, Poffo, is we need to figure this out so that we can take the good parts that people experience around Christmas, the good feeling parts of it, and figure out how to have that all year round. That's what we need to do.
Sure. I For the longest time I thought, how I don't know how I'll ever be able to experience or celebrate Christmas ever again. It's Christ's Mass, after all. It's the Christian celebration of supposedly the birth of Jesus. Um, that we know that, even according to the Gospels, it's never given a date, and if the shepherds were out, watching their flocks, that would have been in the spring, so it couldn't have been in the winter. But the idea is, there is all of this filler and fluff and traditionalism wrapped up, whether it's religious or just cultural, in this holiday, and like it taps into the deepest parts of who we are. That the ideas of giving and sacrifice, and making it through the darkness to see the light again, so that's powerful and so enduring, because our greatest cultural myths and traditions are woven with it, and so we know that there's something real, there's something true there, but then we just attach all this additional mythology and folklore and legend to it, and tradition, and cultural expectations of gift giving and presents and the decorating the tree, and we set up all these standards. We have to have the tree, we have to have the presents, we have to have the relatives, we have to cook a big meal, we have to do all this stuff. But we don't have to do anything. I mean, we should only be doing this stuff if it's actually salubrious and healthy, and if it's good for us. If it's not good for us, I say get rid of it. We had a very simple little gift exchange, me and Amber. Neither one of us really had a lot of money this year, so we didn't go all out. We just did a few gifts. We got the cats a few things, and we just had a very quiet. And the the miracle is that it was a peaceful time for us. There was no stress involved, and we weren't running around like crazy trying to shop for a million people, which I've done. I've done as I was younger. Growing up as a kid, I was obsessed with getting everybody just the right gift, the perfect gift for everyone, and having the perfect experience. And I mean, there's so much. The idea of maybe going on ski trips, going snowboarding around this time, like spending time with, having romantic experiences, like so many movies that we've seen that like put these ideas in our head of how Christmas should be. And it's really it's a fascinating phenomenon that, like, it can really set people up for discouragement and depression or surprisingly, it can be a really peaceful time if you kind of hang on to what's important, and don't like get caught up in the materialism and the expectations of it all.
Yeah, yeah, and so that's the thing is, I mean, yeah, people aren't obligated to do all these things that they think they are, and sometimes people get into like a competition too, like they're trying to outgive each other. Like, you know what I mean? Like
With
somebody will give
gifts, or
somebody.
with decorating their house, or with even
Yeah,
throwing parties and stuff. We're always trying to impress, and it becomes another opportunity for ego to manifest. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, I know. It's so interesting. And like, people were asking me at Hy-Vee, like they were asking me like, what are you doing for Christmas? Do you have any plans? And I'm like, not really, and people are just like look at me strange, because they don't get that concept. So like, let me tell you, Poffo, here's how my Christmas has been. First of all, I haven't had to work because I wasn't scheduled yesterday on Christmas Eve, and the store's closed on Christmas Day today, and I'm never work on Tuesdays, so I got 3 days in a row off basically, and so that right there is pretty good. That right there for me is a Christmas vacation, so that's good. So basically, but everything's been pretty much the same, and that's the way I like it. So like, my mom and I, we each have our own projects that we're always working on, reading or writing something, or me doing art, that kind of thing. But then like yesterday my mom did the vegan chili like she always does on Sunday. She always does that on Sundays, whether it's Christmas Eve or not. And so then we play Skip-Bo, her favorite card game, except we screw it up. We change the rules. And we watched the musical version of A Christmas Carol. I think it has like Albert Finney in it or whatever. But it's a really dumb musical version of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens.
Mhm.
And the songs are terrible. Like what sort of person comes up with these dumb songs? Like, because my mom's, she's a musician, so she's like, she has higher standards for music, but we love making fun of
Yeah.
it, you know.
You're
But I mean,
reminding me,
that's
you're
an
reminding me of
interesting.
another aspect. We could talk about what people do, what people's holiday traditions are, in different parts of the world, or what we all do for the last 2-3 years before we moved to Pacific Northwest in Southern California. We did the Krampus thing, that like there was this Krampus festivals going on sort of in succession, and they were progressively gaining more and more popularity, and it was great. It was amazing to do all these Krampus related festivals, and March, like the March, a play we went to a ball. Like there's all these different Krampus themed um, events that were great. That we were actually starting our own tradition 2-3 years in a row, and then we left, and there's not as much going on here. But so there's also the idea of people's kind of holiday traditions, what they do, what's meaningful to them. I always end up doing something for the homeless, or helping, maybe getting somebody food, or baking something, or going to visit someone. I also do, obviously this year I did a ton of online activism, so I was just sending out messages and really trying to get the point across that we don't have to kill turkeys and pigs to have to bring peace on earth. Like, how ironic, how sardonic and ironic it really is that, like, to celebrate the birth of the Son of God, animal, like sacrifice more innocent life, and then how the turkey is like almost, it's fetishized. It becomes like a fetish. Everything revolves around the death of this animal,
Yeah,
and then we don't see it, but they're bred by the millions to satisfy, to satiate this stupid tradition of killing an innocent animal. So yeah, there's a lot there's things that we need to fight against, and we need to condemn and eschew, and there's other things that we can promote. And so I way back before, I was trying to make a point, I think, that I was like, how the hell am I going to celebrate Christmas anymore? Because I no longer believe, I'm no longer a Christian. I don't believe any of this stuff. I know it's all mythology. I know it's all materialism. I can't get into it. What am I supposed to celebrate anymore? And so what I'm trying to say is, I think that we can still enjoy the nostalgia, the hot cocoa, the eggnog, vegan eggnog, like the aesthetic. We can still enjoy the aesthetic of bringing in like holly and pine and trying to and decorate our houses using the evergreens and stuff like that. Like there's nothing wrong with that, and it's a really quaint, charming thing to do. And I think we should do more of that throughout the year. We don't have to just because we don't subscribe to sort of the most popular cultural myths doesn't mean we can't enjoy the season and the festivities and stuff like that. For a long time, I was really struggling with that. I was like, because I was a Christian, and so when we come out of Christianity, we have to kind of reject everything that has to do with Christianity because we know that it's all bullshit. But so now I'm at a more peaceful place where I've accepted it, and I know it's part of our culture. But most people, it's not even about their religious beliefs. It's about family and the gift giving and just whatever they make it about, which is usually just cultural traditions.
And so people's celebrations that they do around Christmas actually have little or nothing to do with the mythology of Christianity anyway. It's all just tradition, and in fact, all of the different things, such as them killing these animals or having these pine trees in their houses and weird crap like that. None of that has anything to do with the mythology of the birth of Jesus or anything anyway. So it's interesting. Yeah. You just realize that Christmas it's almost like a religion in its own thing. And it's got this mix of strange things. And then, the Santa Claus thing, I have to say a few words about the Santa Claus thing. That is one of the most disturbing parts of Christmas to me. And lying to
your children, telling them that there's this giant fat elf that's gonna come into your house, and he sees you when you're sleeping, and he knows if you're naughty and all this kind of stuff. It's like he's just another weird form of Jesus or God that like sees everything. It's gonna punish and reward, whatever. I mean, it's sort of lost its
basically.
It's kind of innocuous now. It's not as I'm trying to say, it's not as threatening as it used to be, where Krampus would get you. Like if you were naughty, there's my Krampus ornament there. Can you see him?
It's kind of
Krampus would get you. Krampus would get you if you were naughty, and he would carry you off in the sack. And then Saint Nicholas would reward you with cookies or gifts or whatever. And now it's just like you get a piece of coal if you're bad, or you just don't get anything. But so it's sort of devolved into like a PG version of it. But the original Austrian and German traditions were really, really interesting to get into. The origins, the true origins of Christmas and stuff. And then going all the way back to the Saturday Night Festival.
Hey, Poffo, you'll find this hilarious. Okay, I got something really funny to tell you. So whenever anybody asks me what I asked Santa Claus for Christmas, or what Santa gave me, because people do this, and most of them are adults, so I assume that they're just joking with me anyway. I tell them I don't get Christmas presents from Santa Claus. I'm on the naughty list. And they're like, well, what did you do? And I'm like, I don't know, but I don't get Christmas presents from Santa Claus, so I must be on the naughty list. That's got to be the explanation, right?
You were getting into before about this crazy thing of how we invent these stories, and we basically promote like delusional thinking in our children. I mean, people say, "Oh, it's all it's all for fun, and it's not as harmful as you're making it sound." But no, seriously, like you're lying to your kids, telling them all this stuff, and then they end up finding out, as they get older, and they're disappointed, and it just becomes like what was the point of that? Like talk about the folklore and the kind of the myths and the fairy tales, and let them be fairy tales, and we can kind of partake in it. But let the kids know that it's that's fantasy. Like the idea of perpetuating this these lies and these myths, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like why? And then I think it's for the parents. It's more for the parents, so they can like kind of you know, kind of live vicariously through their kids and keep that childhood like mystery and magic. They want to like, you know, keep that facade going. But it's really
Okay.
weird, and I just think there's healthier ways to do it, you know.
Yeah, see, here's the deal. First of all, I don't approve of the Santa Claus thing because it is lying. So, regardless of whether the parents think it's fun or not, it is lying, and that causes kids to lose trust in their parents when they find out they were lying to them and trying to make them believe that there was this fat old man who lives in the North Pole and has 8 flying reindeer and squeezes his fat ass down that chimney to bring you presents. It's like, what? You know,
I love the. I
yeah.
did
I mean,
love
some
the. I
may.
mean, I loved it as a kid. The idea of reindeer on the rooftop, and then my dad would always he'd show me leaving milk and cookies out, and then there'd be like a ripped up napkin on it. He was like, "Look, he ate the cookies." My dad like ripped up the napkin, and there was like spit on it to show that Santa wiped his mouth with it, and then the presents would all be there. And there's something magical in it. It invokes the sense of mystery and wonder, and that's a beautiful thing. I guess there's no other way to do that except to lie. And I guess that's exactly what religion
Is
does for
there?
people, you know? What's
The
that?
thing is there a way to have that mystery and wonder without lying? That is
Yeah, yeah,
an
it's
important
an interesting.
question.
It's the same question could be phrased. Can we get sort of can we get the magic and the mystery and the wonderment and the awe um, out of religious beliefs without fundamentalism, without like, you know, ascribing to the literalism of believing that literally the Son of God was born 2,000 years ago in a manger, all this kind of stuff. Like that, there, I love the themes, and I love the subject, and I love the idea of humble beginnings, and I love the idea of a savior, really, of the idea of that there being a you know, a being or a force, a benevolent force that is sent to earth to help us, to redeem us. I mean, these are beautiful concepts and ideas. Like I wish I could just take all of these things from religion and apply them and sort of cultivate them in a way that is non, you know, non harmful, non destructive, that doesn't sort of like, you know, screw people up psychologically and emotionally and stuff the way religions do. I can already
Yeah,
hear a lot of
basically
people
what you'll
would
end
be
up
saying,
doing.
what's that?
What
What's
you'll
that?
end up doing is you'll end up coming up with your own biopantheism holiday tradition. That's what you'll end up doing.
Yeah, I would love to, and it would definitely revolve around, you know, the cycles of nature and the seasons and the idea of gratitude and the winter solstice. Obviously, we're not necessarily an agrarian culture where our lifestyles are since is so tied in with and agriculture because we can just go to the grocery store and buy the food that we need. But that's where the winter solstice was a really important time. All of the holidays revolved around the solstices, the equinoxes, different sort of celestial cosmological events and happenings in the sky or things that happen on Earth that had to do with the you know, with of the earth, that the shifting in the weather, because they were so dependent on the crops and the food. They would have to, you know, bring everything in and store everything for the winter. And so these things, to mark and remember these things, were really important. So what does it mean to us now? That's why, like, the whole idea of neo-paganism, it's really fascinating. I love the aesthetic, but at the same time, it's kind of it's unnecessary, and it just seems kind of silly because we're not entrenched in the land like we were. I mean, in some places, some people are, but it's not like something that we that has the same kind of significance. People are literally just doing it because they like the aesthetic of pagan gods and goddesses, and they like to dress up and kind of cosplay, do like a Ren fair,
Yeah.
basically. It's Ren fair, basically. People dressed up and they do their rituals, and I have nothing against that. I think it's definitely an improvement off, you know, than much better than the Abrahamic religions. But even in the
Yeah.
Jewish traditions, there are the Levitical feasts, Shavuot and Sukkot and Yom Kippur and all these things. They revolve around harvests, and they all revolve around food, and our relationship with the land, and the changing of the seasons and the weather. I've written a great piece about this. It's called Nostalgia and the Holidays, and it talks about all this stuff and what should we celebrate now that we know that it's all based on the weather, that the Bible is not to be trusted, that Christianity is a lie. What do we actually celebrate? What do we believe in? I think it's still good to gather together, to congregate, to fellowship, to reconnect with loved ones, and or if you don't have that, to reconnect with the earth cycle. So
Yeah.
that's a future episode, is holidays. What kind of holidays should we celebrate? What kind of festivals should we have, instead of just following along the same old traditions that have no meaning to us or have become something really negative and materialistic? What can we do that poignancy and meaning as a pantheist? I've really focused for a long time now.
Yeah, what we're gonna do is, when we have a good time where we can get on some other, pantheist vegan people and stuff, where we can discuss this, like, how do you handle the holidays? What do you do? What does it mean to you? What are your traditions that you've come up with?
Right.
That kind of a thing. And so we can get a picture, like a common thread between what each person does. What do they have in common? You know what I mean? Find something that applies to us. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's so much more to be explored there, and like, seriously, like, to have an awesome hangout, or maybe a series of them covering each of these different aspects that we've been talking about. So yeah, I mean, but it was good to talk to you. Yeah.
Sure,
So yeah,
man.
I mean, it was good to have a little Christmas hangout with you, and so, I mean, glad you're having a Merry Christmas. And and one more thing I want to say, like, I really am liking Jamie Soden's New Year's resolution, him trying to go vegan.
I didn't see it.
That
he's going to go vegan, right? Yeah, isn't that amazing? See that's just the
yeah,
quiet
and it's so
influence
cool
that we've had on
see,
him.
here's the thing. That guy, okay, you understand, Jamie, he spends so much time on the internet, okay? And so he's all over Facebook, educate people on veganism and how factory farming and all this stuff contributes to climate change and all the health stuff. Like, he's getting
at least we've pointed him in the right direction. At least we've pointed him in the right direction.
Yeah,
so all that energy and all that intensity, he's using it for good now. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And see, that's the coolest thing. That's the greatest Christmas gift there could ever be, is my friend Jamie Soden going vegan. That's the whole thing, because he understands, because we've been talking about this so long. He's read our post, and so he gets this, and now he's becoming sort of an activist himself, and it's like, whoa, Jamie is really awesome.
Hey, would you how much time do we have? Do you have to go right? Do you have to go right now? I was going to ask you if I could read something.
Yeah,
if I could read something really quick.
Well,
it won't take like
quick. You can just...
2 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead and read it before I end the hangout. So yeah.
Hopefully you'll get something out of this, and it won't be. It's in my the philosophy of biopantheism. It was my explanation for it. And I'll just get right to it. It just ties into everything we've been talking about. As far as specific rituals, observances, and practices to incorporate into our lives, these may involve anything you choose to do that helps to center and ground your mind, body, and spirit, and strengthen your relationship to nature. Likewise, whatever allows you to experience the numinous is a common practice among biopans, as well as hiking, camping, gardening, and anything related to ecology and the outdoors, meditation in a quiet wilderness setting, or exploring a forest, waking up early to watch a glorious sunrise, or similarly taking time out to watch it set, practicing stillness, mindfulness, breathing, and contemplation, listening to peaceful, life-affirming music, or doing yoga. All of these things are wonderful tools to realign your thinking and recharge and refresh yourself. To live in harmony with yourself and with all other sentient life forms is the ultimate goal of biopantheism. In terms of specific holidays or observances, many biopans follow the pagan tradition of trying to align themselves with the cyclical patterns of nature by honoring the solstices and the equinoxes annually, and observing the changing seasons with simple, personal, and practical rituals to mark and commemorate the passage of spring to summer, summer to fall, fall to winter, and so on. This may involve anything from cleaning your house to exploring a new hiking trail or planting a tree, but it should actively include taking part in something that allows you to see, smell, taste, touch, and hear the changes in the weather. There is no worship in Biopan, only a heartfelt desire to live closely to the earth, to respect all organisms and stay in communion with nature. By modeling our lives after the rhythms and flow of the life cycles and the seasons, we tune in to the heartbeat of God and effectively purify ourselves from all the destructive patterns in our society. By observing nature closely, we remain humble and aware of our personal relationship to everything else on the planet. Biopantheists seek only harmony and balance, peace and equanimity, and these things are vital and necessary in order to unify ourselves and progress and evolve as a species, to flourish and thrive, to coexist and sustain ourselves in order to live up to our fullest potential. This is the goal and the motivation of all biopantheists and the purpose of this meta-religion. There you go.
Awesome. Yeah, so I guess we've said it all.
Let's dive into it next time. Let's get into it.
Yeah, next time we'll dive into it, and later on I'll add a title and description to this little hangout we did. This is just like an introduction to other topics we'll discuss in future hangouts. Anyway, have a Merry Christmas, Poffo.
Yeah, man.
See you later.
Yeah. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy